They once ruled the roads. Now, you can't even give them away. Across the United States and Europe, entire brands are vanishing, silently, suddenly, and without warning. Showrooms are empty, dealerships are ditching inventory, and owners are watching resale values nosedive overnight.
Yeah, Tessa, it's an unfortunate fact, and right now it could take months for those inventories to get back to normal, but that timeline even is just a guess from dealers at this point that I spoke to, and used dealerships in particular are having to raise prices to keep up with competition.
This isn't just about slow sales, it's a full-blown identity crisis playing out in real time. What happened to the charm of Fiat? Why is Jaguar collapsing despite going electric? And how did icons like Rover and Mitsubishi end up forgotten? This isn't just a list, it's a wake-up call, because the car sitting in your garage might be next. Fiat, the charm wore off. Fiat once burst back onto the American automotive scene with a bang. When the Fiat 500 returned in the early 2010s, it was everything young urban drivers wanted. Small, stylish, and refreshingly different from the bland sedans dominating city streets. With its retro design, colorful interiors, and compact size, it looked like the perfect solution for city dwellers looking for fun, flair, and functionality. But the charm didn't last. Fiat quickly ran into reliability issues that plagued nearly every model in its limited U.S. lineup. Owners reported frequent electrical glitches, transmission failures, and sky-high maintenance costs. Consumer Reports consistently ranked Fiat among the least reliable brands in the entire American market. At the same time, the brand failed to offer the power, refinement, or practicality that mainstream competitors delivered effortlessly. Buyers who took a chance on Fiat soon found themselves frustrated and, in many cases, stranded. To make matters worse, Fiat never established a strong dealership network across the country. Service centers were rare, parts were expensive and often back-ordered, and customer satisfaction dropped quickly. Meanwhile, brands like Toyota and Honda continued to dominate the small car segment with bulletproof reliability, reasonable pricing, and accessible service. Fiat simply couldn't keep up. By the year 2024, Fiat's U.S. sales dropped to just over 1,500 cars, a shocking fall from grace for a brand once poised to become a stylish, urban favorite. The 500 lineup was pulled entirely from some markets, and what remained could barely justify its place in the showrooms. Fiat's identity crisis, caught between budget appeal and boutique branding, ultimately left it stuck in limbo. Now, Fiat's presence in the United States feels like a ghost. Few new models, fewer buyers, and a legacy fading fast. This is what happens when charm isn't enough to carry a car brand through fierce competition and evolving expectations. But Fiat's not alone in this quiet, vanishing act. Another luxury badge is starting to fade into the background. Jaguar, beauty can't save it now. For decades, Jaguar symbolized British luxury, power, and pedigree. The brand's sweeping sedans, snarling sports cars, and regal road presence made it a staple for those who wanted to drive with elegance. Cars like the XJ and the F-Type weren't just transportation. They were status symbols, and the unmistakable growl of a Jaguar engine was a declaration of taste. But Jaguar's golden age is behind it. In a bold pivot, the company announced that it would eliminate all gasoline-powered vehicles and go fully electric by the year 2030. This radical shift was meant to reposition Jaguar as a premium electric leader, but it had the opposite effect on its traditional customer base. Buyers who once adored the visceral experience of a roaring V-twin or V8 engine found little to love in Jaguar's new sterile silence. Meanwhile, Jaguar's lineup began to wither. As of 2024, only the F-Pace sport utility vehicle remained in meaningful production, and even that was beginning to feel outdated. The brand's once expansive offering had shrunk to a shell of its former self, and the numbers reflect the decline. Global sales collapsed by over 80% in just 6 years, plummeting from 180,000 units in 2018 to barely 33,000 in 2024. In the United States, the picture is even bleaker. With only 13,210 vehicles sold in 2024, Jaguar trails far behind every major luxury competitor. Lexus sells more in a single month than Jaguar sells in an entire year. The company's investment in future electric vehicles is also a gamble. With plans to build new platforms from scratch rather than adapting existing ones, the brand is betting billions on untested ideas while bleeding market share in the present. Underneath the styling and heritage lies a brand struggling to stay relevant in an industry where heritage is no longer enough. Jaguar's future depends on a new identity, one that risks alienating the very drivers who made it iconic in the first place. And while Jaguar struggles to modernize, the next brand simply gave up evolving altogether. We spent weeks pulling the numbers, cross-checking sales data, and talking to insiders, so you don't end up with a car nobody wants. If that's worth something to you, hit subscribe. You'll be glad you did. Chrysler, stuck in the past. It was once a pillar of American automotive innovation, a proud member of the legendary Detroit Big Three. From the early 2000s to the mid-2010s, it offered everything from bold sedans like the 300 to family-friendly staples like the Town and Country. But in the present day, the brand is hanging by a thread, its entire lineup reduced to just two models: the Pacifica and the Voyager. That's it. No sedans, no sport utility vehicles, and no future-forward offerings to compete in an electric age. The biggest issue? Chrysler missed the rise of the modern sport utility vehicle. While Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai were flooding the market with sleek, fuel-efficient crossovers, Chrysler clung to the minivan format, refusing to expand into segments where demand was exploding. As consumer preferences changed, Chrysler stood still. By the year 2024, minivan sales across the brand had dropped by more than 50% compared to the previous decade, and there are no signs of recovery in sight. Even Chrysler's attempt at innovation fizzled. The Airflow concept, their highly publicized electric vehicle meant to lead the brand into the future, was scrapped before it ever reached production. Meanwhile, rivals launched hybrid and electric models across every category. Today, Chrysler's two surviving minivans simply cannot carry the brand's entire weight in an industry shifting rapidly toward electrification, technology integration, and segment diversity. The Pacifica is still a capable vehicle. It features solid ride comfort, good interior space, and an available plug-in hybrid option. The Voyager, however, is a budget-spec version meant primarily for fleet sales and lacks much of the polish needed to compete in today's crowded marketplace. There's also no sign of a new model announcement, leaving many to wonder if Chrysler is quietly being phased out by its parent company. With no meaningful innovation, no segment diversification, and no new models on the horizon, Chrysler now looks less like a contender and more like a relic from another era. It is hard to imagine how long the brand can survive on just two aging nameplates. But if Chrysler was too slow to adapt, this next brand was too quick to abandon its roots, and ended up losing everything that made it iconic in the first place. Mini. No longer Mini. No longer iconic. Once upon a time, Mini was the epitome of urban cool, a pint-sized British icon with a go-kart-like driving experience and style that stood out on any street. From London to Los Angeles, the Mini Cooper made a name for itself by being small, nimble, and full of character. In the early 2010s, it symbolized a lifestyle more than just a vehicle choice: efficient, fun, and compact. But as of today, the very elements that made Mini successful have been slowly engineered out of existence. The biggest blow to Mini's reputation came when the brand started growing, literally. Models like the Countryman and the Clubman brought bulk, higher ride height, and bigger interiors in an attempt to compete with compact sport utility vehicles. But the more Mini tried to compete with larger vehicles, the more it lost the charm of being, well, Mini. The result? A brand identity crisis that alienated its core audience while failing to convert new customers who already had dozens of better sport utility vehicle options. Performance-wise, Mini still offers punchy turbocharged engines, but those thrills now come with a hefty price tag. The most recent Cooper S puts out around 189 horsepower with 1,980 cubic centimeters and 207 pound-feet of torque. On paper, it sounds decent, but at over $32,000 for a well-equipped version, buyers are now asking, what exactly are they paying for? Reliability concerns, cramped interiors despite larger dimensions, and a maze of confusing trim options all add to the frustration, making the buying process more complicated than it should be. Loyal fans have slowly drifted away, and younger buyers simply do not see the value proposition anymore. Mini's once unmistakable silhouette now blends into a sea of crossovers, losing the quirky flair that made it famous. In terms of ride, weight, and structure, newer models have become stiffer and heavier, with the Countryman tipping the scales at over 3,600 pounds. Suspension tuning leans firm, but without the raw feedback that used to make the brand's small footprint so much fun to drive. The result? A car that tries to be everything and ends up being very little to anyone. And while Mini's grown too large to be special, the next brand on this list never got big enough to survive. And the silence it left behind says everything. Daewoo disappeared without a trace. There was a time in the late 1990s when Daewoo seemed poised to take over the global budget car market. Emerging from South Korea with promises of practicality and affordability, Daewoo positioned itself as the alternative to more expensive Japanese brands like Toyota and Honda. Students, first-time buyers, and cost-conscious families flocked to showrooms to purchase cars like the Lanos, Leganza, and Nubira. The appeal was simple: new vehicles at used car prices. At its peak, Daewoo became a familiar sight in parking lots across the United States of America. But underneath the marketing sheen, the brand was plagued by serious issues. Owners began reporting inconsistent build quality, electrical failures, and drivetrain malfunctions. More alarming than the breakdowns was the lack of available parts and qualified service centers. Mechanics often refused to work on Daewoos, and even minor repairs turned into logistical nightmares. The brand's dealership network was weak, scattered, and underfunded, leaving customers stranded with no reliable after-sales support. Once the honeymoon ended, word of mouth turned negative. Buyers felt tricked into purchasing vehicles that became unserviceable within a few years. The resale value cratered. Reliability ratings nosedived. Daewoo's fate was sealed in the early 2000s when its South Korean parent company filed for bankruptcy. General Motors acquired the remnants of the brand and quickly phased it out. In the United States of America, Daewoos were rebadged and sold under the Chevrolet name, but the damage to consumer trust was irreversible. By the mid-2000s, Daewoo as a standalone brand was quietly buried. No announcement, no send-off. Just a gradual disappearance from dealerships and highways. Once hailed as the next big thing, Daewoo faded into obscurity, remembered only by frustrated former owners and curious automotive historians. Today, you are unlikely to see one on the road. In the United Kingdom, the number of registered Daewoo vehicles dropped from over 55,000 in 2013 to fewer than 2,300 in 2023, a 96% collapse in a single decade. The remaining cars are often in disrepair, with owners struggling to keep them functional due to non-existent parts support. Now, from a dead brand to one that's dying in real time, even die-hard fans are walking away. Alfa Romeo. Passion doesn't pay the bills. This car has always been more than just a car brand. It was an expression of Italian art, performance, and emotion. Its vehicles were seductive to look at and thrilling to drive. Models like the Giulia and Stelvio once captured the imaginations of drivers around the world. The Giulia Quadrifoglio, equipped with a Ferrari-derived engine, could rocket from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. With 505 horsepower, 600 cubic centimeter displacement, and 443 pound-feet of torque, it delivered blistering performance that rivaled German sports sedans. But for all its passion, Alfa Romeo has struggled to deliver on the fundamentals of ownership. Reliability has been a persistent issue. Owners have reported widespread problems with electronics, transmission components, and build quality. Recalls have been frequent, and warranty claims have flooded service departments. Alfa's high-performance engines often demand expensive maintenance, and even regular servicing can exceed what many buyers expect for a luxury car. These headaches have slowly eroded the brand's reputation. For all the joy Alfa promises on the road, it often leaves owners stranded beside it. Financially, the brand has been in trouble for years. Under the stewardship of Stellantis, Alfa Romeo has received less and less investment. Rumors swirl that the company is reducing its focus on the brand, prioritizing more profitable markets within the conglomerate. Despite aggressive marketing efforts and special editions, Alfa's sales have remained underwhelming in critical markets like the United States of America and Western Europe. In countries where resale value and long-term reliability drive purchasing decisions, Alfa Romeo is viewed as a risk few are willing to take. Even longtime fans are beginning to question their loyalty. The emotional appeal that once justified mechanical quirks is wearing thin. With resale values plummeting and dealership networks shrinking, Alfa's future looks increasingly uncertain. Fewer new models are being developed, and the promised electric transition appears both late and underfunded. Without a clear strategy or consistent product reliability, Alfa Romeo's once brilliant star continues to dim. And if Alfa Romeo is suffering from neglect, the next luxury brand is collapsing under the weight of its own ambition. Maserati. Prestige meets reality. There was a time when seeing a Maserati badge on the street turned heads. The trident symbol meant elegance, performance, and a taste for high-end Italian motoring. The Gran Turismo and Ghibli weren't just cars, they were statements. Athletes, celebrities, and executives once considered Maserati the next step above traditional German luxury. But in 2024, the reality behind the badge is anything but glamorous. Maserati is now fighting to stay alive in a market that's moved on. Despite price tags regularly exceeding $100,000, Maserati's reputation for reliability has collapsed. Buyers report constant electrical glitches, failing infotainment systems, and even engine and transmission failures within the first few thousand miles. Maintenance costs are equally brutal. Owning a Maserati often means paying thousands just for routine service. And unlike rivals that offset premium pricing with bulletproof dependability, Maserati's resale value nosedives the moment it leaves the dealership. The numbers tell the rest of the story. In 2024, Maserati sold only 4,819 vehicles in the United States of America. Globally, sales dropped to just 11,300 cars, a staggering 57% decline compared to the year prior. The financial hit was immediate. The company posted a $285 million loss and dismissed its chief executive officer, David Grasso, in a desperate attempt to shift direction. Compounding the problem is Maserati's poor strategic positioning in the modern auto world. It has no dedicated electric vehicle lineup and no American manufacturing footprint. This makes the brand especially vulnerable to tariffs, especially under current policies set by President Donald Trump, including a 25% import tax on European luxury cars. That alone prices Maserati out of competitiveness against German or American-built alternatives. Even Ferrari and Lamborghini, which face the same tariffs, have managed to thrive due to stronger brand loyalty and superior engineering execution. With no clear electric roadmap, shrinking market relevance, and ballooning production costs, Maserati's once dreamy future has turned into a financial and reputational nightmare. But not every brand in crisis wore a luxury badge. Some just faded from the streets altogether. Mitsubishi, once exciting, now forgotten. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Mitsubishi had one of the coolest lineups on the road. The Eclipse was the hero of high school parking lots. It offered sedan buyers something sporty and unique. And the Lancer Evolution? That was a turbocharged rally-bred icon with a cult following that rivaled Subaru's WRX. Back then, Mitsubishi meant edge, fun, and affordability. But today, that spirit is all but gone. The company's US lineup has shrunk to a handful of forgettable sport utility vehicles, including the Outlander, Outlander Sport, and Eclipse Cross. None of them stand out in a crowded field dominated by Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai. Gone is the turbocharged madness. Gone is the sharp design. What remains is a shell of a company trying to sell middle-of-the-road crossovers in a hyper-competitive market. One of the biggest issues dragging Mitsubishi down is its complete lack of American manufacturing. Every single vehicle is imported, which dramatically slows delivery times, increases prices, and makes the brand especially vulnerable to supply chain shocks. During the global health crisis and semiconductor shortage, Mitsubishi dealerships were left scrambling with almost no inventory, while other brands quickly adjusted. The damage was lasting. Customers simply stopped showing up. And when it comes to sales volume, the story gets worse. Compared to its golden years, Mitsubishi now hovers near the bottom of the market. Many buyers do not even realize Mitsubishi still sells cars in the United States of America. Its vehicles often sit ignored on dealership lots, with no innovation or excitement to draw attention back. Even the Eclipse name, once iconic, is now attached to a slow-selling crossover, tarnishing the legacy it helped build. Mitsubishi also lacks a competitive electric vehicle strategy. While other brands launch full EV platforms, Mitsubishi remains years behind. The company's international alliance with Nissan and Renault was supposed to give it an edge, but so far there is little to show for it in the American market. Unless something drastic changes, Mitsubishi risks following in the footsteps of brands like Saturn or Pontiac, remembered fondly by a few, but ultimately left behind by the industry. And while Mitsubishi fades into obscurity, one Japanese titan is stumbling toward the same fate: Nissan, the giant that fell asleep. There was a time when Nissan stood tall as a symbol of practical engineering and forward-thinking design. In the early 2010s, the brand positioned itself at the forefront of innovation with the launch of the Leaf, the world's first mass-produced electric car. While competitors remained committed to internal combustion engines, Nissan appeared ready to lead the charge into a cleaner future. But what seemed like an industry-defining moment quickly turned into a cautionary tale. Instead of building on that early success, Nissan stagnated. The Leaf was left unchanged for too long, failing to keep pace with evolving consumer expectations. Meanwhile, newer electric models from Tesla, Hyundai, and Ford quickly outclassed the Leaf in terms of range, tech, and performance. Beyond the electric vehicle arena, Nissan has also faced significant reputational damage from its widespread use of continuously variable transmissions. These CVTs were initially praised for their fuel economy, but have become synonymous with poor durability and erratic performance. Drivers reported shuddering, slipping, and premature transmission failures, often with costly repairs that undermine the brand's image of affordability and reliability. Add to this a sprawling dealership network in the United States that far outpaces demand, and the result is a flood of unsold cars, inventory bloat, and declining profitability. To clear backlogs, many dealerships resorted to price cuts, but the long-term damage to brand equity was already done. The financial consequences have been severe. In recent years, Nissan's global profits collapsed by more than 99% compared to prior levels, pushing the brand to the brink of insolvency. In Japan, the company skirted bankruptcy, and its leadership team was rocked by the arrest of its former chief executive officer over financial misconduct allegations. The aftermath saw frequent executive turnover and no clear recovery strategy. Nissan's product lineup has also suffered. Once popular models like the Altima and the Rogue have failed to spark interest, while efforts to recapture enthusiasts with the new Z sports car fell flat due to outdated technology and underwhelming refinement. Build quality concerns, dated design language, and software glitches have further eroded trust. You've seen giants fall, but the final brand on our list has become an empty shell, haunted by what it used to be. Rover, a national symbol lost. For much of the 20th century, Rover was more than just a car brand. It was a national symbol. To own a Rover meant you valued British craftsmanship, dignified styling, and the subtle charm that came with understated luxury. From stately sedans to elegantly simple hatchbacks, the brand projected a sense of reliability and tradition that resonated with drivers across the United Kingdom and beyond. But as the global automotive industry evolved, Rover remained trapped in the past. By the late 1990s, its lineup felt outdated, Its technology lagged behind, and its designs failed to inspire new buyers. While brands like BMW and Mercedes-Benz forward with modern engineering and aggressive styling, Rover's cars looked increasingly old-fashioned and ill-equipped to compete. Ownership instability only worsened the situation. Over the years, the company changed hands multiple times, from British Leyland to BMW, and later to the Phoenix Consortium. Each new chapter brought big promises, but little real investment. Instead of innovating, Rover doubled down on models that were already behind the curve. This led to declining sales, a damaged brand image, and increasing financial strain. Without a clear identity or a competitive edge, the company bled market share and investor confidence. By the early 2000s, things had reached a tipping point. The once mighty British automaker faced mounting losses and a shrinking dealership network. Then, in 2005, the inevitable happened. Rover filed for bankruptcy. The British government declined to step in with financial assistance. Production halted. Plants shuttered. Thousands of workers lost their jobs. The iconic Longbridge plant, a fixture of British industry, was closed. The brand's final chapter ended not with a grand farewell, but with silence. A slow, painful disappearance from roads, showrooms, and memory. While a few nostalgic enthusiasts still gather to celebrate Rover's legacy, the modern car market has moved on. The Rover name survives in historical registries and collector forums, but the cars themselves are rarely seen, and spare parts are increasingly scarce. Rover did not just vanish. It left behind a warning for every automaker still riding high today. Adapt or die. Honor the past, but never lose sight of the future. Because even legends can be forgotten. So now you've seen how legends fall. Quietly, painfully, and sometimes without a trace. But what about you? Have you owned one of these brands? Did it break your heart or surprise you in a good way? We want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below. If you learned something new or just want to stay ahead of the next big collapse, give this video a like and hit subscribe. We're digging deeper every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's